We're going live, going live. All right, we are live. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our weekly Patreon Zoom yoga class. And welcome to those of you who are joining us from YouTube today. My name is Ashley. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that if for some reason the internet disconnects mid-class, I might be able to restore Zoom, but if you're using YouTube, I might not be able to restore it very quickly or at all. So just know there will be a recording of this video that gets put up afterwards. So with that being said, here we go. I'm a little nervous because I'm doing this live, but let's just go ahead and get started. So today's class was requested, as I was saying to you guys earlier, the lovely Loreli, and it's her birthday today. So happy birthday, Loreli. Today you're gonna need a blanket and a block or any kind of substitute. You can use a towel, a book, textbooks, usually really good, helpful thing to use. But we're focusing on the feet, and that's also gonna help us with our ankles and our knees. And this is one of my favorite yoga practices to do because whenever we work with the feet, we actually can help open up so many other things in the body. In Chinese medicine, the feet are actually related to the kidneys, and the kidneys are related to the emotion fear. And so by taking care of our feet, our knees, and our ankles, we're also helping to take care of the roots of our bodies. And so we can also take this practice off of our mat and into our lives by making a conscious effort to do the same thing in our day-to-day lives and implementing regular grounding practices as we move through our day-to-day lives, because as we know, there is a lot of chaos everywhere all the time. So that being said, there's this quote that I really love, and it's Master Yoda from Star Wars, and he says that fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. And then I like to think that fear and anger are valid emotions and can be helpful at times, but when they become chronic, that's when they become harmful. So with all that being said, let's begin. Feel free to close your eyes or gaze at a steady point out in front of you. Maybe join your palms in front of your heart or rest your hands on your thighs. And just take a moment to connect with yourself, connect with your breath. Maybe become aware of the state of your mind, what kind of thoughts or emotions are present for you today. How does your body physically feel? And even recognize that maybe our thoughts, our emotions, and our physical body can all be intertwined into one experience. Each can affect the other. And that also means that by adjusting one, we can affect all of these aspects of ourselves in some way. As a way of stepping into our practice, feel free to sing the sound Om one time, or just take a long exhale. Take a full breath in. Exhale completely. Inhale again. Ooh. Release your hands, open your eyes. Please begin in downward facing dog. Come on your mat. Make sure everything's going good. Yes. Make sure that your hands are shoulder distance and your index fingers are straight ahead. Grip the floor with all 10 fingertips and push the inner edges of your hands down. Rotate your inner thighs back and wide, maybe having bent knees to start, and then do or don't work your legs toward straight, keeping your toes flared, reach your heels toward the floor. Take slow, steady breaths. Try to keep your mind in your feet today, and then your legs and your knees, your ankles. And just be aware of what's going on in them at all times. A few more breaths here. Lift your upper arm bones away from the floor as you push your hands forward and your feet back. Bring your knees and your ankles together. Curl your toes under and have a seat on your feet. Keep your knees and ankles squeezing in as you sit back and sit your torso up. Interlace your fingers in front of your heart. Clamp your fingers closed. Then place the backs of your hands on top of your head. Squeeze your shoulder blades toward each other. Then work your arms towards straight as you rotate your upper inner arms toward the wall behind you. Move your rib cage back and your tailbone forward as you extend more length through your spine. Even push your toes down and back toward the wall behind you. Release your hands to the floor. Take the tops of your feet to the floor. Keep squeezing knees and ankles in. And try to flare your pinky toes a little wider. And then once you're sitting on your heels, interlace your fingers behind your back. Squeeze your shoulder blades toward each other and then work your arms toward straight. Stay working here or tone your abdomen. Try to keep hips on heels, round your spine, then bring your forehead toward your knees. You can always just look at your knees or come all the way down to your knees, or for less rounding of the spine, you can take forehead in front of your knees, whatever feels better for you today. Push your knuckles up toward the ceiling as you round your spine. Don't hold your breath. And slowly come back up. Release your hands. Grab your blanket roll and take your blanket roll behind your knees from a standing position. So I just rolled mine up into a hot dog style roll, really tight. And then you want to take this roll right behind your knees with your feet hip distance apart, and then bend your knees and lift your heels and quickly take your hands to the floor in front of you. From here, push your feet down to lift your heels up, and that might be totally good enough. Or walk your hands forward and take your knees to the floor. Then slide the tops of your feet down onto the floor and then sit back again toward your heels. You get to choose how much weight you put into your legs. The more weight, obviously, the more sensational this pose will be. You can always keep weight in your hands or use a block out in front of you to hold you up. Yeah. Just breathe slow, steady breaths. We've got 3 positions here. From this position, we're going to slide the blanket roll back halfway in a moment. And then after that, we're going to slide it back one more time close to the heels, but not on the heels. A couple more breaths in this position. And lean forward, slide your blanket roll to the middle of your calf, and then sit back down on your blanket. Good. Just take slow, steady breaths. One area of the calves, maybe even your hamstrings, the backs of your thighs might be really sensitive or more sensitive than other areas. Totally normal. Then shift forward, you're going to switch down to the last position, taking your blanket roll almost at your heel, and then sit down one more time. Sit up tall if you can, push through your shins into the floor, and even push your butt down into your calves if you want a little bit more sensation. Just keep your gaze steady to help steady your mind. Slowly shift forward. Take your blanket roll just in front of your knees, still on your mat. And then just set your blanket there for a moment and forget about it. And turn your toes. You want your toes to turn in on your left foot. And you're going to take your right foot on top of your left foot, close to the inner edge of your heel, and then just slide it down until it's in the arch. And you're just going to sit there on your feet. And it's the same idea as the last one with the calves. You're putting weight into this kind of sensitive area in your foot. For some people, it might be more sensitive than others. But regardless, there's usually a knot there of some sort. And this is really good for helping to work it out. You can even shift your hips side to side a little bit, give a little rocking motion going on if that suits you in your practice. Shift forward, switch sides, take your left foot on top of your right foot, slide it down into the arch, and then have a seat on your feet. Lean as much weight back as you need to. And again, feel free to shift side to side to whatever feels good and appropriate for you. The deeper the breath, the better. It sends fresh oxygen to your blood, which sends fresh blood to your muscles, helps things relax. Right, then come off of your feet. With your blanket roll out in front of you, just step the ball of both feet onto your blanket roll with your heels on the mat behind it. So just the balls of your feet are on that roll. And then bend your knees enough so that your rib cage and your thighs touch. Then round your spine evenly over your legs and take your face toward your shins. Feel free to shake your head no and move your shoulders away from your ears and onto your back. Feel free to stay working here or push through the balls of your feet and your heels and maybe work your legs towards straight, even if they don't straighten all the way. It's better to only straighten your legs to the point where your rib cage and your thighs still touch for the safety of your spine. Take a few more breaths here. We'll get moving a little more here in a minute. On your next inhale, lengthen your spine. Bend your knees a little more. Place your hands on your hips. Push through your feet to slowly stand up. Keep your feet on your prop. And then take your hands back behind you. You can either go fingers pointing down or fingers pointing up. And then press your hips forward as you push your heels down. Lift through your sternum, move your shoulders back, and start to do an upper back bend. Maybe pull your throat back and look toward the wall behind you for standing camel. And then lift up through your heart, head last. Step off of your prop. And then come into mountain pose. Just set your prop off to the side somewhere. Mountain pose at the middle of your mat. Bring your feet together, ankles together. And then take your arms alongside your torso. Push through the inner edges of your feet and reach through your fingertips. Then extend up through the top of your head. Keeping all of this integration with your left side. Pull your right knee up. And then grab your right foot. Sorry, I'm not mirroring you. And then place your right foot to the inner edge of your left leg as long as you're not pushing into your knee. Then push foot into leg, leg into foot, and bring your palms in front of your heart. Breathe here. Stay working here or extend your arms straight up over your head. Reach tall. Vrikshasana. Remember to pay mindful attention to what your feet are doing, both of your feet. Push your right foot into your leg and even flare those toes. And feel how that leg pushing into that foot helps keep that foot where it is. And push through your standing leg as you lengthen longer through the top of your head and out through your fingertips. Then slowly lower your hands, lower your foot, switch sides, take your left foot along the inner edge of your right leg as long as you're not pushing into your knee. Push foot into leg, leg into foot to hold that leg up, palms in front of your heart. Stay working here or extend your tree upwards. Feel free to join your palms or keep your hands separate. Grow length through your spine, length through your legs and arms. Reach to the top of your head. Very good. Lower your hands, lower your foot. I'm just going to turn so I don't confuse you. Take your right arm under your left arm and then hold your shoulders or join the backs of your hands or wrap your arms around each other to join your palms. Then pull your elbows forward and down and lift up through your sternum. Bend your knees. Then lift your right knee up. And then point your right knee a little to your left to cross your knee over your left knee. Squeeze knee to knee, ankle toward your shin, and then lean your weight back toward your standing heel, and then lift your torso more vertical, straight up and down. Again, try to get your weight more on your heel rather than into your knee to take the load out of your standing knee. Unbind, arms by your side, second side. Take your arms out wide, take left arm under your right arm, either hold shoulders, join backs of hands or palms. Pull elbows forward and down and lift up through your sternum. Bend your knees, lift your left knee up, point your left knee to the right, and then cross your knee over and hook your foot if you like. If you don't want to, it doesn't have to happen. And lean more weight back toward your standing heel and lift through the top of your head. Squeeze elbows and knees into each other to help tone your outer thighs. Really good for your outer knees. Stand up, arms by your side. All right, bring your fingertips in front of your chest, bend your knees, step or jump your feet wide, arms wide. And then line up your wrists and your ankles as best as you can, and then turn your toes in a little bit more than your heels. And take your hands back to your hips. Tone thighs and lift kneecaps, lean hips back and your torso forward. Feel free to bend your knees to reach your fingertips to the floor or keep your legs straight. Lean a little bit more weight forward into your hands, but keep your heels firmly rooted into the floor. Stay working here, walk your hands a little further back. Push your hands down and forward, bend your elbows, keep shoulders away from your ears and on your back as you fold forward, heart first, head last. Even tilt your sitting bones more toward the ceiling and rotate your inner thighs back and wide. Notice if you're collapsing into your inner ankles. Try to lift your inner ankle away from the floor and then push evenly through your pinky toe and big toe edges of both of your feet. And breathe here. Next, inhale, slowly lengthen your spine. Place hands on your hips, move your shoulder blades on your back, and slowly stand up. Virabhadrasana 2, take your arms wide to the side. Turn your right toes out. If your left toes turned out, turn them in a little bit. Then bend your right knee directly above your right ankle. Widen your right knee to the right. Try to widen your right knee to the right so much you can see your first two toes inside your knee. And try not to let your knee go beyond your ankle. And then also try not to let your torso go beyond your right hip. Try to be straight up and down. Push your arms longer. Then push more through your back foot, just like you did in the last pose. Lift your inner ankle up on your left leg, and then push through the big toe and pinky toe edges of your back foot. And breathe here. Good. From here, triangle pose, work your right leg towards straight. If you need to walk your back foot in a couple inches, feel free. Lean your hips toward the left and your torso toward the right. Stay as sideways as possible. Then take your right hand to shin, ankle, floor. If you need a block, use a block under your right hand. Then extend your left arm straight up. Stack your wrists and your shoulders. Maybe stack your hips. And then try to only take your hand, your bottom hand, as low as you can stay torso directly above your right leg. So if you're like this, to have your hand outside your foot on the floor, try elevating to hand to shin so you can stay sideways. Yeah. Look down at your right foot, bend your right knee directly above your ankle. You have a couple of options. Either place your right forearm to your right thigh, palm pointing up, or right hand outside your right foot. Extend your left arm beyond your ear for extended side angle. Utthita Parshva Konasana. Stack your hips just like triangle pose. Stack your ribs, stack your shoulders, pull your chin away from your chest, and maybe turn your gaze past your left armpit. Maybe even look at your left palm. That's actually the classical gaze. Inhale, slowly stand up. A lot of time on one leg. Turn your right toes in, turn your left toes out. Lean your hips to your right, torso to your left, reach. Just kidding, come back up. Bend your left knee, Virabhadrasana 2. Almost forgot it. Widen your left knee to the left. Try to stay just above your hips. Reach your arms longer. Gaze beyond your left middle finger. Keep your chin level with the floor. Push through your back foot, especially the outer edge, and lift your inner arch away from the floor. Great, now triangle pose. Work your left leg straight, tone your thighs, lift your kneecaps, lean your hips toward the right, torso toward the left, reach, get length, then place your hand wherever it's gonna go, above a block, on a shin, whatever's best for you. Stack your hips, shoulders, and wrists. Push your right foot down like you're trying to drag it back, and then push your left leg longer, even push down through your left big toe mound more. Extended side angle, bend your left knee above your ankle, take left hand either outside your foot or forearm to thigh. Reach your right arm beyond your ear, palm pointing toward the floor. Turn your torso more toward the ceiling, lift your sternum, stack your hips, maybe turn your gaze toward the ceiling or toward your right palm. Widen your left knee to the left. Good. Slowly stand back up. Turn your left toes in. Bring your fingertips in front of your chest, bend your knees, step or jump, feet together, arms by your side. Come into downward facing dog again. Use your down dog just to reset, regroup, catch your breath or your mind. Step your right foot in between your hands. Virabhadrasana 1, spin your back heel to the floor and line up your heels. Make sure your left toes point sharply forward and to the left. Take hands to hips, lift your torso. Press your tailbone forward, draw right hip back, left hip forward, and then do or don't reach your arms straight up. Push through your back leg, lengthen your back leg longer, and then push the inner and outer edge of your back foot down and flare your back toes. Yeah, and then sit a little deeper, tilt your sitting bones toward your right heel, and then lift up through your sternum, maybe join your palms, and maybe even gaze beyond your thumbs or up in between your palms. Watch out for collapsing into your right foot. Put even weight through both feet. Last couple of standing poses here. Lower your hands to the floor. Step your back foot forward a step so your feet are about 3/4 apart on the mat. And then lengthen your spine. Keep squaring your hips forward. Move right hip back, left hip forward, and fold heart first, head last over your right leg. Grow your legs longer and even push your feet apart. Try to push them away from each other. Do or don't walk your hands forward or backward to straighten your arms. Maybe take forehead to knee. For me, I get a stretch in my outer right shin in this pose. You may or may not get the same thing. Next inhale, lengthen your spine, walk your hands back and step back to downward facing dog. Back. Again, sharply turn your right toes forward and to the right. Place hands on hips, lift your torso, press tailbone forward and square your hips, pulling your left hip back, right hip forward. Try not to let your right heel come off the floor unless you're actively pulling your heel above your ankle. Then from here, reach your arms up and then sit a little deeper. Move your ribs back, tailbone forward, maybe join your palms and gaze up toward the ceiling. Don't hold your breath as you hold the posture. Lower your hands to surround your left foot. Step your back foot in a quarter of the way. And then lengthen your spine, work your legs towards straight and draw left hip back, right hip forward. Fold your heart first, head last toward your left leg. And again, maybe walk your hands forward or back. So forward or back, arms straight. And then take forehead toward your knee as you push your legs longer. Next inhale, lengthen your spine. Press back to downward facing dog. Bring your feet together. Come into plank pose, top of a push-up. And then come onto like your balls of your toes. So your heels are kind of beyond your toes if you can. And then hold plank here. Feel free at any time to use your knees on the floor for more support. To lower halfway down, Chaturanga Dandasana, squeeze elbows in, and then roll over your toes, push your arms straight, tone your thighs, lift your kneecap for upward facing dog, and hold here. Press tailbone forward, shoulders back, lift through your chin, lift through the back of your skull away from your neck. Come up to plank pose, then lower your knees, then come all the way down onto your abdomen. Half frog, we're gonna get into some feet stuff now. All right, take your left forearm out in front of your torso so that it's elbow directly under your shoulder, and then bend your right knee. Take your right arm back and grab your right foot. Push your foot into your hand as much as you pull your hand into your foot, and then pull your heel toward your hip by bending your elbow. You can stay like this or exercise your toes a little bit more by turning your fingers over your toes if your shoulder allows it, and then maybe even push your toes back against your hand as you push your hand down into your toes. Then turn your ribs and your gaze, your torso forward, lengthen your spine, push through your tailbone, lift through your chest, and breathe. Release your foot. Switch sides, take your right forearm in front of your chest, bend your left knee, take your left arm back, grab your foot from the inner edge, pull your heel toward your outer hip. Keep squeezing your legs toward each other. Maybe point your elbow up and turn your fingers over your toes, pushing toes against your hand as your hand pushes into your toes. Turning your torso more forward, lengthen your spine, lift your chin, grow your right leg longer, but keep squeezing your legs toward each other. That'll help keep your inner knees happy. Lower your foot. Downward facing dog. Push up. And then from your downward facing dog, bring your feet together. And then bring your right knee behind your right wrist for pigeon prep. Point your right toes back toward the left corner of your mat, but to the left side. And then bend your left knee so your left knee comes down, slide it back. Squeeze your knees down and toward each other. You might need to keep your hips up. And if you have a block, you can actually use your block under your hip to help support you so that your hip flexor can relax. And then do feel free to fold forward for a couple of breaths. We won't be here for very long. And hold that. You can totally hang out here or quad stretch just like you did in half frog, the last pose. Take your torso up. When you lift your torso up, push your tailbone forward. Double check that your left ankle is straight and not pointing in and sickling. Now from here, take your right hand to in front of your shin on the floor, bend your left knee, reach back, grab the inner edge of your foot. Push your foot into your hand into your foot, keep that resistance, and then pull your heel toward your outer hip. And start to point your elbow up. And again, take your hand, maybe fingers over your toes, palm over your toes, then push toes against your hand against your toes, and breathe here. Yeah, lots of toe exercises. Lower your foot. Second side, step back to step forward, left knee forward behind your wrist, lower your right knee, make sure your right toes point straight back, and then maybe lower down onto your forearms. Again, feel free to prop your left hip up on a block or bolster and take a few breaths here. Keep squeezing your knees toward each other, not only from front and back in, but also side to side in to the midline. Now stay working here. Take your left hand to in front of your shin. As you lift your torso up, bend your right knee, reach back with your right hand, grab your foot, push foot into hand into foot, then draw your heel toward your outer hip. Then maybe point your elbow up, fingers over your toes, push palm into toes, toes into palms, pull left hip back, right hip forward, and then turn your torso more forward, lift your chin. Good, you're doing great. Downward facing dog. Tone your thighs, lift your kneecaps. All right, we're getting into some weirdness now. So lower your knees to the floor, grab your block or something that you can sit on. And I'm just gonna face this way. And so just sit on your block, however best you can, and then take your legs out in front of you. So this here is Dandasana. Then bend your left knee, lean a little to your right with your right hand on the floor, and then flip your left shin to the floor. If that's like not happening, you can also start from up here, step your left knee back, and then sit your bottom down on your block. So however you can get into this position. Make sure your left toes point straight back, squeeze your legs in. You can stay like this or extend your right leg straight. And squeeze your legs in, lift up through your sternum and lift your lower back in and up. This is Triangukai Kapata Paschimottanasana, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. All right, take your hands around your shin. You can either keep your hands there or grab your shin or grab your ankle or grab your foot, whatever you can. And then lower, maybe take your elbows to the floor if they reach. Otherwise, just work up and rather than going all the way down. Just take some breaths, push through both the ball of your big toe edge of your foot and the pinky toe edge evenly. And then push your heel down like you're trying to drag it toward your right hip. On your next inhale, slowly sit up and then come out by bending your right knee. You can either sit up to switch sides, or you can just extend your left leg forward and then lean to your left like we did that first side. And then just get into this position on the other side. Point your right toe straight back. Make sure your pinky toe is pulling away from your ring toe, and then squeeze your knees in. And then from here, feel free to fold forward. Heart first, head last. Again, always feel free to bend a knee that isn't a forward fold so that you have something even to round over. That goes for most forward folds like that. Push through the ball of your left foot. Clamp your left heel toward your hip. And don't hold your breath. On your next inhale, slowly sit up. And then you can either just straighten your right leg out in front of you or sit up and then come off of your block and set it to the side. We'll probably come back to that block. You can also always just sit on a block in any seated pose. Now from here, holy cow pose. Keep your legs forward out in front of you. Make sure your sitting bones are underneath you and your lower back is lifting in and up. And then bend your right knee this time. We're just going to switch what side we did first. And then lift your right heel up off the floor with your heel close to your right sitting bone. And then try to slide your right heel over your left thigh crease. So your heel is now outside your hip. And then point your right toes and push the pinky toe edge into the floor to tone your outer ankle. Then maybe, if you can, turn your knee to point forward so your knee comes down to lie on your left leg. Otherwise, you can also grab your fingers around your thigh and just pull thigh and chest toward each other. If you've got your knee to your knee, feel free to stay upright, or you can wedge your left wrist in front of your right ankle and your right hand outside your right hip and just pull yourself forward. Do squeeze your right shin into your outer left thigh. That'll help your IT band here. And then maybe grab shin, ankle, or foot with your right hand or with both hands if you can keep all of that engagement. Maybe drop your head. A lot going on in this pose. Half cow face. Next inhale, slowly sit up. And then take your right leg straight out in front of you, tone your thigh, lift your kneecap, flare your toes. And then switch sides, pull your left knee in, grab your shin, lean back a little bit, point your toes, and then slide your heel outside your right hip as best as you can. And again, you get to choose, interlace fingers around shin or drop your knee to your knee. Maybe hook your right wrist in front of your left ankle and your left wrist just outside your left hip. And then pull your body weight forward. Do or don't grab shin, ankle, or foot with one or both of your hands. Remember to squeeze your left shin into your outer right thigh a lot. Push through your right foot, big toe and pinky toe edge. Good. Next inhale, slowly sit back up. Extend your left leg straight, play your toes, tone your thigh, lift your kneecap. And then from here, place your hands back behind you about 6 inches or so. Scoot your hips a little bit forward and bend your knees. And then take your feet about hip distance apart. Turn your fingers out and have the heels of your hands about as wide as your mat. And then bend your elbows a little bit. Move your shoulder blades onto your back. Push your arms straight and lift your lower back in and up. You can stay like this or push your hands and feet down to lift your hips up. Give your low back a little break after all that. Try to keep your head in line with your spine unless you know you can look at the wall behind you and not hurt your neck. And just breathe a few breaths. Some weird stuff coming up again. Lower your hips to the floor. All right. Come into downward facing dog. And then from your down dog, this is going to be very strange. So try to listen super carefully. Turn your toes in and then try to flip to the tops of your toes. So I'm going to try to turn so you can see my toes. It's like not a very great view, but there you go. So it's like that. And then from here, point your knees toward each other and bend your knees and lower your shins to the floor, trying to keep your feet where they are. And then walk your hands back and sit on your feet. So you're going to get a big ankle and outer shin stretch. This is something that is in Light on Yoga. BKS Iyengar goes over the different variations of Virasana. So this is one of those variations. So intense. Good. I can't see anybody's feet right now, but I'm assuming you got it. We won't be here super, super long. These positions of the ankle are super important for health of your ankles, your feet, your knees, and even actually up into your hips because they all affect each other. Now from here, lean forward, take your hands back to the floor and just point your toes straight back, then curl your toes under and come back into a downward facing dog. Tone your thighs, lift your kneecaps. Now to get into the next variation, it's the same thing, only you want to take your big toes together. So this might not be happening for you, and if it's not, just do the previous variation. So just turn your toes toward each other, let your heels fall apart, but push through the tops of your feet, bend your knees and lower your knees to the floor, and then have a seat. Good. Awesome. And you might have accidentally done this one the first time. That's totally okay. They're both great. The first one should have been feet separate. Second one is toes together. The next one's even weirder, so don't worry. Going along the weird train. So a couple more breaths here. Just try to focus on something that brings you comfort or stability. All right, now shift forward. Don't come into down dog this time. Point your toes straight back and then curl your toes under and then just sit back on your heels for Vajrasana feet for a moment. The next one, as you sit like this, I'm just going to show you. It looks super weird and I cannot do it the way that it looks in the book, but I'm going to do my best. So you turn your toes in on the bottom foot like we did on the foot smash. And then you're going to try to take like right in between your big toe and second toe. We're going to go like right on top of your heel. And then the idea is to keep your knees close together. But for me, my knees totally go wide. And you try to stack your right foot directly on the bottom of your left foot. So as you can see, my knees go really wide. But some people can bring their knees together. When I do that, my feet are not stacked anymore. So do your best to get your feet stacked, even if you have to widen your knees to start. And then go ahead and try. Just do one side. It doesn't matter which foot you start with on the bottom. This one's my least favorite. It's the most uncomfortable one of all, but we're just doing it anyway. You can lean weight forward on your hands if you need. Do your best. Big stretch to the tops of the ankle and the tops of the feet. Yeah, all those joints and tendons in there. Then slowly shift forward. We're not spending too much time on those ones. You can kind of work yourself up to having longer time limits in these postures and your home practice. And step your other foot on top. Try to stack your feet so your left top of your foot is directly on the top or on the bottom of your right foot. And if you can, bring your knees closer together. Good. Just take slow, steady breaths. We might run over on time. I have no idea what time it is, but we got a few more things to do. Lean forward. Be careful with your knees. Come into a downward facing dog. Tone your thighs, lift your kneecaps. Just tone the area around your knees that you've been stretching and your ankles. Next, we have regular Virasana. Lower your knees to the floor. I always recommend using a block or a prop under your bottom. That way you have something to sit on, especially if you tend to hover above the floor in this position. So you'll want to take your block in between your feet, point your toes straight back rather than in, and then have a seat on your block. Or if you can take your bottom all the way down to the floor, feel free to not use the block at all. Just take some time here. Regular Virasana. I'm not teaching this one today, but if you want to do the lie back on your back version, feel free to. Just make sure you take your prop out from underneath your bottom so that you can lie back safely. And push through your shins, push through your toes and the tops of your feet, then lengthen through the top of your head, grow your spine longer. Keep your gaze steady at a focused point. Soften your jaw, your eyes, anything that's not necessary to tone in this pose. Great. Shift forward. Take the block out from underneath you if you had it there. Just put it somewhere. And then come into downward facing dog, tone your thighs, lift your kneecaps. Just looking at the time. Oh, we're good. Okay, a couple more intermission preparatory poses, and then we'll get to a big pose again. So go ahead and come onto your bottoms. Again, I'm not mirroring you, so just take your right shin on top of your left shin. Make sure you're pushing through the outer edges of your feet so your outer ankles lift up rather than sinking toward the floor. So from here, you can stay like this, or you can use a block under your thigh if your knee doesn't go down very easily and it needs to rest. Or you can take your right shin in front of your left shin instead and just place your knees on top of your ankles. So we got those options. Now, wherever you're at, push your big toe edges out toward the sides and then place your hands into your feet. Keep lifting your lower back in and up. Stay upright or start to fold forward, taking heart first, head last toward the floor, maybe not even going all the way down. And then if you'd like, you can stay here, or keeping your feet as they are active and strong, maybe walk your arms out straight in front of you. Some of you might be able to take your whole chest to your shin and maybe your forehead even to the floor, but try not to force it. Slowly sit back up. Then switch sides. So your left shin is on top or your left shin is in front. Push through the balls of your feet. Squeeze your knees toward each other and keep your outer ankles lifting up, hands into the soles of your feet, push in, and then lean your torso forward. Keep your lower back lifting in and up. Maybe fold all the way forward or come toward that direction. And then do or don't take your arms out in front of you. Keep squeezing your heels like you're trying to pull your heels towards your bottom. That bending knee action to keep your knees happy. And then slowly sit back up. All right, another fun pose. Come into downward facing dog. This next one is Vamadevasana. It's a super weird pose. So it looks a lot like pigeon when you're starting out, but we're trying not to go, we're trying to go into more one straight line with the legs. So take your right knee forward behind your right wrist. And then instead of pointing your right shin off back to the left, try to point your right shin kind of like just so that your heel is right inside your inner thigh. And then lower your left knee to the floor behind you, but then scoot your left knee directly behind your right knee. So your knees are in one line. And then slide your knee back. And then lower your right hip a little to your right on the floor. All right, this is super, super weird. I should have done, I'm going to show you on the other side, but stay on that side. So you're leaning to your right. And then reach back for your back foot. And then pull your heel like you're doing a quad stretch toward your outer hip. From here, the idea is to balance on your left hip a little bit as you grab, or on your right hip, as you grab your front foot with your front hand. Now this might be where you stay. The shin, so you want to slide your knees toward each other as you try to join your feet together. So it looks like this. And you can do sound effects. It works. It looks like my feet are touching, but they're not. Ideally, people want to take the soles of their feet to touch like they're in prayer position, but it's not technically always possible. So just do your best. That knee slide toward each other is super imperative to get your feet close together. And then once you're done, lower down and then come back to downward dog. Good job. Switch sides. Lower your back knee. Slide your knee behind your front knee. And then lean onto your front hip. Reach back for your back foot with your back hand. Try to make sure your knees are in one line. You might have to scoot a little bit again. And then pull your heel toward your outer hip. And then from here, you can stay or use your front hand to grab your front foot. And then at the same time, slide your knees toward each other as you try to join your feet toward each other. And maybe gaze in one direction. And try not to hold your breath. And then slowly lower your feet. And then come to downward dog. Yay, we did it. Well, there's one more weird pose, so get excited. You'll need your block for this one, or some like low stool or something. But take your block on your mat, just like so. And then take your feet in front of your block, and then sit your bottom on your block. I almost missed my block. Now from here, you can totally chill and just be happy, or you're gonna take one foot at a time so that your pinky toe edge of your foot is pointing to the block and your toes are curled under, pointing out toward that side of your mat. And then lean on your other hand and then pull your other foot in. And then try to point the soles of your feet together and the knees out. Your toes are getting a huge stretch, your thighs are getting a stretch. Now, on the camera, it looks like I'm floating, but I assure you I'm on a block. So you can either have hands on thighs or palms in front of your heart or some other weird arm position, whatever feels good to you. And just hang out here as long as you can. Tone your glutes, widen your knees wider, push through your feet, lengthen through the top of your head. Some of you might even want to try taking the block out from underneath you. Who knows? And then take your hands down to the floor whenever you're ready. And then just slowly somehow finagle your way out of the position. Step off of your block and just put your block away somewhere to the side and lie on your back. That's it for the weird stuff. On your back, place your feet on the floor, hip distance, point your toes straight ahead, and then one at a time, walk your shoulders toward your spine. Push your head, shoulders, and feet down and lift your hips up for bridge pose. Feel free to grab the outer edges of your mat or interlace your fingers. Walk your shoulders in again. Keep your chin away from your sternum. Push the back of your head into the floor to keep that curve in your neck. Push through your inner feet to lift through your outer hips. Just a nice neutralizing posture after all the leg work. Release your hands, lower your hips to the floor. And then keeping your feet wide or widen your feet a little wider. Take your knees and just let them fall side to side, staggering to one side, then going to the other for windshield wipers. You can roll over your outer hips and your glutes slowly, as slow as you'd like. You can even pause in areas that feel like they want a little extra time if you have any sensitive points in your hips. And just really start to slow your breathing down, telling your body it's time to gear up for rest. Next time your knees fall to your left, keep them there. Feel free to keep your legs as they are and place the sole of your left foot to your right thigh. Push your thigh up into your foot, foot into your thigh, and extend your knee toward the wall rather than the floor. Do or don't, grab your right wrist with your left hand and pull up in the opposite direction. Just hang out here for a bit. Slow, steady breaths, creating length on the sides of your body and out through your right leg. And slowly release your hands, unhook your foot, come back to center. Let your knees fall to the right. Maybe hook your right foot to your left thigh, pushing foot into leg, leg into foot, extending knee toward the wall. Maybe grab your left wrist with your right hand and pull up in the opposite direction. Relax any areas of tension that are not necessary for this pose in this moment. And gently unhook your foot and wrist. Slowly lift your legs back up, scoot your hips back to center. And from inside both of your legs, grab outside both of your feet. Push your feet up into your hands, pull your hands down into your feet, and feel free to rock side to side if it feels okay on your low back to do so. You can also grab anywhere along your leg that's available to you if your feet are not. Just take slow, steady breaths. Maybe allowing your eyes to start to close here, turning your attention a little more inward. And then wrap your arms around your legs, give yourself a hug, recline child's pose. Feel free to continue the rocking motion and eventually make your way into a more still position. And as you feel ready, slowly make your way into Shavasana. If you're on YouTube watching now, the live stream will end. Try to be in your rest for at least 5 minutes before you get up. Thank you all so much for coming. And I'll wake the rest of you up here in about 5 minutes.